Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. It's Aman, entrepreneur based in Tokyo, Japan, and doing another of my night, or let's say late evening walks. So today I want to talk about a method, or rather an approach, a technique, whatever you call it, that I've been trying recently to increase my productivity and focus and motivation as well, right? What the fuck's going on there? Okay, whatever. Yeah, so the idea, before I talk about the technique, I want to talk about the background, right? So the idea is, if your life, the background is that for the longest time, my life had been like an endless to-do list, right? And basically, I could never do enough in a day, or in a week, or in a month, or in a year, right? And I would always feel like I'm falling behind stuff. And I know there's many approaches to solve this problem. My God, it's getting really cold and my hands are freezing. I have really sensitive hands, to the cold. And but anyway, and when your life looks like an endless to-do list, right? No matter how you organize that list, like urgent, non-urgent, whatever quadrant or whatever, bullet step list that you use, that is a fact for many people, where you can consciously choose to delegate, or whatever. Like after you've done all that, after you've done all the delegation, you've done all the replacement, whatever, you still have a long to-do list at the end of the day, and there's never enough time to do everything that you want to do, right? And if you have a really packed, productive day, sometimes you could go and make a schedule for everything, and I'm really good at that. I can make a really perfect looking schedule for the whole week, really well balanced and everything, and it still gets fucked up because you can't predict life. You can't plan life. You can't plan what's going to happen this week or even the next day, right? You never know what tomorrow brings. So I've never actually been able to have a schedule that actually went according to plan, right? Unless it's all meetings, which is a different thing, but you know what I'm talking about, right? And so, as an entrepreneur, here's what I found that's really interesting, right? This might be specific for entrepreneurs, but let's look at that. So the concept goes like this. Your tasks, every single thing on your to-do list is of two types, right? So, the first concept, there's a few concepts, a few assumptions that underline this system that I'm going to describe. One assumption is that your willpower, mental energy, whatever, is a limited resource in a given day, right? Once you exhaust your willpower in a given day, then things get harder and harder to start and to push on, right? And the other thing is that we are really bad at multitasking and context switching, usually. So these are two basic assumptions. The third one, of course, is that nothing goes according to plan, and you have to, assume that things will get in the way, life gets in the way, and stuff like that, right? And so how do you keep making progress, and how do you stay focused, how do you stay motivated and happy and satisfied to the most to the extent you can, and not burn out and not stress yourself out, right? And still get a lot done while having a life in a way. And so here's the idea, right? The idea is to win the day. And what does that mean? What does winning the day mean, right? And let's talk about the reverse of that first, right? Most of us have set up our schedule or our day in a way that we are almost bound to lose the game every single day. As soon as you make a daily schedule, for the most part, right, you are already setting yourself up for failure, because whenever it doesn't go according to plan, you're kind of failing at your day. You're kind of failing to do, or if your life is an endless to-do list, then no matter how much stuff you get done, there's something else to do, right? And that's also a failure in some way, a failure to keep your promise to yourself, right? And so that when you set up your life that way, or your schedule that way, then you're basically creating a game that's unwinnable for yourself. You will always be a loser at this game that you've created for yourself, right? So what's the key? The key is to create a winnable game, right? Which I know I'm keeping you hanging, but this background is important to understand the system, right? But the key concept is to create a winnable game that you can predictably win every single day for the most part, right? And where most outcomes lead to victory and very few outcomes lead to failure, and which you can also bounce back from very quickly, right? So that's what's called a winnable game, right? Where it's much more likely that you'll win and much less likely that you'll lose. Fair enough, simple as that, right? So how do you do that in an unpredictable life with unpredictable enemies and opponents, metaphorical, of course. And that's where I had this idea of splitting all my tasks, right? Business tasks, we're talking about business stuff here, right? Into two categories, right? One category is, and this has nothing to do with priority, by the way, we're not talking about priorities here. One category is things that you have to expend a lot of willpower on, right? Willpower and that mental drive energy is the key resource that we're managing here, not time, right? So things that you have to expend willpower on, and these are usually things that you have to push a baby out, right? You have to spend a lot of energy to shape that project, to shape that task. Let's say you have to write something and you have to start with a blank page, or you have to continue writing a script, or make a presentation for a meeting. Deep work, right? Stuff that requires you to expend everything you have mentally and exhaust yourself and do your best work, right? Or it's stuff that takes a lot of is really frustrating. For example, let's say you have some government admin stuff, whatever, that is oh my god, once I start, I have to prepare all these documents, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to visit the post office, whatever, yada yada yada, right? Or it could be something hey, we have to figure out a new plan for hiring for this, I have to rewrite a careers page, I have to write a job description, stuff like that. Basically stuff that requires you to sit down, get your ass in your chair and start something, and then push it into reality. Push the baby out is what I call it, right? And once it starts, it's really it can be frustrating or painful to start, and that's where you procrastinate a lot usually, right? These aren't things like laundry, unless you're somebody who, for whom laundry is a big project, right? Maybe laundry for the whole house or something, I don't know, right? And these are also projects usually which take a long time, which you can't always just like predict how long it takes, because there's unpredictability built into the task, into the project, right? And you don't know if you'll be able to finish it. Like, it's going to be something like designing a new visiting card for yourself, for your company. I don't know. I have to do that myself, as an entrepreneur. I like doing it, I think it's very important. But like, anyway, let's say, so designing a visiting card, I know that I can't just do that in one day, right? I know that I'm going to have to abandon it at some point and then revisit it again. So it's one of those projects which is ambiguous. It's not going to get done until for a while, because I'm artistic. I want to do many retakes and whatever. Sorry, revisions, sorry, not retakes. Gosh. So these are willpower related pushing tasks, right? The other kind of tasks are things that find their way into your schedule, into your life, into your calendar, right? Unexpected meetings, calls, like things happen, right? Shit happens, shit hits the fan, people die, people quit, meetings come up, calls come in, emergencies happen, meetings happen, regular meetings happen, scheduled meetings happen, right? And this stuff you have to, it doesn't take willpower to receive those, to start those tasks, because those tasks just show up in your life automatically. And they're more like reactive in nature, right? You have to react. You are reacting to these things as they come, but it's not like something you have to spend willpower to start, right? And that's how I would break up your to-do list, in a sense, right? Now, once your to-do list is like that, here's the next concept. I believe, or like I've learned this, and it's worked really well so far, is this idea of, okay, are we still recording? Yeah. Is this idea of treating your calendar like a conveyor belt, or like an assembly line of tasks, where you are the only person at the assembly line, right? You're like a manufacturing worker, and your job is to take a task that rolls up to you, stop the assembly line, and then the task can only move forward after it's done or taken care of, right? You can't stop the assembly line and move between tasks in general, right? Now, this only applies for pushing tasks, right? There's an assembly line, there's a conveyor belt which has pushing tasks on it, right? Like willpower related tasks. And so any other reactive tasks on your list or on your schedule means that you are stepping away, you're stopping the conveyor belt, you're stepping away from the conveyor belt to take care of whatever happens, and then eventually you step back to the conveyor belt and keep working on the piece of task in front of you that's waiting for you always, right? So I dropped a bottle cap. This is not delicious. This supplement that somebody gave me a supplement, like a BCAA, whatever drink, and it tastes like medicine from my childhood, and I don't like it. But okay, getting back to the video, the concept is you have to treat pushing tasks as tasks on a conveyor belt, where your schedule will have only one task at a time, and that's indefinitely the only task you'll work on, unless it's taken care of in some way or reaches a temporary or permanent conclusion where maybe you have to hand it off to somebody else, or you have to set it aside or send it back down the conveyor belt to come back to you at a later time or something, but it's like it has a certain kind of conclusion. It's not abandoned just like that and like, oh, I'll get back to it like in a few hours or in a few minutes. I need to push on this other task for now. No, right? If you have a paperwork kind of thing, okay, you keep doing that until you, let's say you hit a roadblock and you're like, hey, I need to, let's take an example, right? So let's say you have to do a lot of paperwork. Let's say you're setting up a new company or entity or legal entity, whatever, or something, and there's paperwork involved. And you finally, so what you would do is, and there's other tasks. Let's say you also have to do some product planning or some marketing planning, whatever. You have to write a new plan for your team or a training plan, whatever it is, right? Then you would take that task first. Let's say the more urgent task is, the paperwork. So you take your calendar. The only pushing task you're allowed to work on for now is the paperwork. Now let's say you start today, right? You are working on the paperwork in the morning, whatever. It's the only task you need to work on, unless you have meetings or reactive stuff in the middle, which you take care of. You step away from the conveyor belt, you take care of that task, and then you get back to the paperwork, right? And let's say you hit a place where, oh, you need to talk to a lawyer, or you need to wait for somebody to respond, right? Or wait for a phone call or something, or wait for an appointment, and there's not much you can do anymore. You need to wait for something, right? So that's a temporary conclusion for that task. So you take that task and you say, I'm done, in a way, and you push that task back to the list. You take it off it's like a Kanban in a way, right? You take that task off your calendar and put it on back in the list somewhere, right? And then you move to the next pushing task, right? And what this does is it keeps you relaxed, in the sense that you know that your willpower is being used on only one thing at a time. You know exactly what to do or what you're doing. You also are at peace knowing that there's a lot of tasks that you're not doing on purpose, and that's okay. They will get done, right? And you don't feel guilty about reactive stuff or things that get in the way. It's like, yeah, fine. The life gets in the way, fine. The conveyor belt has stopped. I'm now going to switch to a different conveyor belt. I'm going to go back to my conveyor belt eventually, right? I don't have to stress about it. Like, I'm switching between conveyor belts or whatever, right? So, and this way you can actually say that, okay, this day I will work on my conveyor belt task until let's say 12 p.m., 1 p.m. And then I will just take it easy, I will relax, I will do other things after that, let's say, right? This way you have a winnable game where if you simply spend time chipping away at your tasks, right? And that's your daily schedule, like, hey, if I spend until 1 p.m. chipping away on this, whatever, or 3 hours or whatever, like, this is my daily deadline, let's say, right, where I will chip away on this conveyor belt task until 2 p.m. And then I'm off to reactive stuff. Maybe I'll goof around, whatever, or maybe I'll just keep working, up to you. And as long as you stick to that plan, you win the day, right? Does that make sense? You win the day by having this mental demarcation. And it's a winnable game now. You don't have to have like an endless to-do list where one thing is over and the next thing takes its place, like a hydra with many heads, right? So that's the video.